here?
There's absolutely no one.
Ah,
Not yet, but they're probably just late getting in.
yeah.
I did just get it started.
We're gonna do it again. We don't have any special appearances. We don't have a consent agenda. Let's roll right into it. Hobbs, where would you like to start on the budget work session?
Thanks for saving me on the connector at some point. Once that doesn't work with computers, everything does.
What's the story? Are we moving this stuff in and out of this place? We got like a closet or something we're
Down
storing?
the hall to the right.
So we're toting all this stuff out of here and then we're bringing it back in for any kind of meetings that we're having here?
Yes, we are.
There you go.
Yes, we are.
You got a mouse in your pocket?
I didn't hear it.
All right, everybody got your book?
Yep.
And all that, and, cover, there was a little, slideshow thing, if you want to call it.
That,
Print that page. This is for a moment. So this is to be a summary of a proposed balanced budget for next year. Outline some steps toward implementation. You've heard a lot of this stuff already, but my purpose is just to give you a high-level overview and maybe get kicked off on the board's action. Going forward. So as usual, so a little bit of an agenda here, but my talking point as usual is budgeting is about priorities. There's an awful lot of money that goes through the county's books every year. And it sounds smart aleck, but it's true. If there's something that the county needs to do, then we need to find the money for it. If we don't have money, then that's just what it comes down to. That's true always, but it's more true this year. So, what you'll see in the package, you'll know what I mean. So start with the goals you've been talking about for the past 2 months. What's on the board and on the slide, and a pared down version of that. What you expect is, what you see is items in the budget reflect most of these, and if it's not on this list, then it's probably not in the budget in a lot of ways. So there are different ideas that come up over time, and I think we are getting the frame of, the board gives direction on what it thinks is important, and that's what we chase. And if it's not, if the board doesn't stay after staff on something, then we perceive it as not being important, and move on to back to things that are on the list. So this year, I'll remind everybody that technically speaking, we're still in this state of emergency when it comes to COVID. There are no per se COVID fighting costs in this budget. Funding the pandemic is through grants, and we do that by appropriation after the fact, as it were. This budget is looking past the pandemic, take the positive view that come July 1, we should be past the bulk of the crisis. Some money is still available for that. As usual, most of the county's spending is on education and public safety. No surprise there. This year, you'll see that a lot of costs, a lot of change in costs are directed toward payroll, and that's between new employees and raises that we've put in place over the past few years. It's all coming due this year in terms of delay and half year and all this. What I have is a balanced budget, but to do that, I had to propose a 3% real estate tax rate and a very hefty use of fund balance. So I do anticipate a pressure on this. This next slide, I think number 5 here, I go through highlights in operation. We will bring in more money from the 2% tax increase. We have some different initiatives for discussion in here on last week. The personnel costs are all baked into departments except for some contingency lines and a series of things that are in breakout format with that. So this is for your direction. We can go backwards on that and unpackage. So it'll take a little bit of work, but we can do it as we can.
Muted.
Buried in the bowels of the budget is a recognition of this American Rescue Plan Act funding. So the bulk of that is in contingency as unassigned, but I do propose to take 22,000 of that to pay for this broadband thing. To talk about just a pot of money to cover whatever interim expenses we have with that until we get lights on this, if it's authority or what we want to do. And another $500,000 to start work on this EMS station. That assumes the guidance we get from Uncle Sam will allow these things, but there is a good chunk of money in contingency, and the idea is we would set that up for the budget this year, so we don't have to go through another year. 20 positions are proposed. We'll go through those if you want, but these are all in the breakout section of the contingency budget. Capital project budget is down this year. The fact of the matter is we are coming out of the bond funded projects. We're still in the throes of, well, I guess we're going to look forward to completion of the school project. Look forward to completion of the County Administration Center project. The public safety project will be coming along for another year or two at least. And then we've got the IT project. So we are working along on different things, but for the most part, next year will be about planning and setting up maybe future years. So that's what I see coming for the work plan. Donations, I've stripped this down a little bit to show you what has changed. This is a regurgitation of what you went through last week. If I've got it wrong, please let me know. I would point out that we did showed no funding for the dental folks. Free clinic, legal aid, Madison or Madison Community Cats. Some of those asked for money, a couple of them did not, but just want that out. Okay. So there's a
So the other outside agencies, like Skyline Cap, for example, is not considered a donation, though.
Well, I'll look it down to the change.
Oh, there's a change. Okay.
This stuff on PowerPoint, print was very fine.
Right. Okay.
So with the personnel, we have no significant change to benefit programs. The exception are this new employee mental health program that we want to get into, a 1.6% increase in health insurance. And the proposal is that the county absorb that. No change this year to the Virginia retirement system contribution rate. I think it's up for more another rate next year. Here in that year, there is no change between years. Program is the 5% cost of living adjustment, and that's holds true for all employees except the ones that we've targeted for. And of course the four is in the breakout. Even your package this year
Muted.
are a description of committee memberships and membership along with the organizational chart and a description of the county fund structure. One of this is usual and customary. If you haven't noticed, I've tried to move the budget to more of a work plan and document and open kind of exercise as opposed to just a chart of numbers. So this continues on that trend. If I can help it next year, we'll go department by department, ready to try some features in each. But that, as they say, been out of time, ran out of gas this year. So to continue with the budget process this year, the idea is to talk about what's in it this evening. If you would, direct adjustments on March 23rd, it would be convenient. I'm sure we could adjust if necessary, but it'd be convenient to get an authorization from the board to advertise the budget on Tuesday with whatever adjustments you have. We have a hearing on the 13th, it's on the 28th, and then to the appropriation program. And I would point out that budget is just a general program. The county actually manages money through appropriations, and so that's practice. So just the recent final thoughts. I do expect adjustment for this. This is a first shot. It's for the board to get a grasp on what's being asked for and what's available. And a tall order for a 3%, a 3-cent tax increase. It's an awful lot of money coming from the fund balance. I've got a little pride in authorship, but it's my role to set this up for the board to dispose of it. So go with it where you will. I would suggest that the board's role is to find some comfort level in whatever budget is adopted. There are any number of stakeholders between taxpayers and citizens human services, county employees. Everybody has a different idea. So, speaking for the county staff, we're here to support you in that. So as soon as something comes up, you want to go and study or discussion, let us know. And we'll do what we can so we can make a timetable. My scheme is to let this version ride insofar as possible for March 23rd, and of course, the cost hearing edition on the website after the meeting on the 23rd. Don't watch out, we're doing a lot of work for this and that. For example, Stephanie called me on an error today where I zeroed out the EMS director's pay. The issue there was because it is other full-time employees. Yeah, I expect a lot of that kind of stuff, but I didn't change it a lot. Just for something like that. So we're glad to answer questions. A fact you might want to take is if you go to page 3 in the book, and there's a table of contents. And we're talking about whatever you want. Any questions?
I have one quick one to start with. Okay. The heavy use of fund balance, so the was $1.5 million or so that I saw somewhere. Does that fall within? You can maybe show me that. I think it's in here.
I did the calculation on page J.
Okay. I do.
Page what?
J1. The
Where's J?
Where do you find it?
Oh, here. HI.
So I guess the short answer is it does.
Okay. All right.
I am sticking with the 18% of unbalanced that is in the policy. And there's discussion of the down here on all that. I think the objective is
You see,
keep the budget this year by $500,000.
got it.
The problem is not this year, the problem is next year. We do that year.
But dipping into it like that.
This is a situation is that total revenues, what we're trying to do is out of balance. So unless we make up in higher revenues in the next few years, this is not sustainable.
And what was the recommended from our financial advisors? 2 cents this year? What was what was the name of that group?
Davenport.
Davenport, thank you. But I do think it was
Now,
a 2 cents.
their program was based on debt service. It wasn't.
Yeah, I understood.
Specific.
So basically,
Certainly point to that.
No, I mean, you're covering the debt service side of it, plus we're added expenses and services.
Well, and we until I'll get back to this business about a, we can do
Absolutely.
financial projection. What I did was, the kind of increase per department was sporadic. So I love it. I took everybody's gasoline budget and put that amount of money. Yeah, that we'll just have to figure out a way.
Another question, so the two different positions, so the 38,000, the 44,000. So both of them will be in finance and admin or no? One, the management services specialist and the account pay, or I guess the assistant payable clerk. They will both be in finance?
The idea is that the payable admin assistant payable clerk would be in the finance department. And that's where this person would be, mainly until the software project is complete. At that point, it becomes a flow that it can be shared between departments. So
After.
once the bulk of the work is finished. The other one is, and some of us talked about this, is that if we don't have a HR department, we need help continuously on this, that, and whatever, procurement, FOIA, there's a number of things. We talk about standing up training programs. This is another area that's kind of like Bruce in the IT position. Now that we have it, we never go backwards. So this is a need, but again, the money's not there.
Yeah, I was just curious, so with the new position that she just hired, so you have that person, right? And then you have Tilly, who is our HR, and she's going to
Not
take.
exactly. Tilly's doing more payroll and benefits. I'm talking about somebody to help with hiring, somebody to help with more directly involved in jumping benefits programs, that sort of stuff.
Okay. So solely HR, I mean.
What- And you know what I asked you earlier today. It was at 81, how do we come down so far?
This is a half year.
Yeah, all right, that's where I was at.
With everything else, all the other moving parts, it's like, not all this is gonna take place in July.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
It was at a full year, it was proposed to us at, the last meeting there goes, it was proposed to us, that there was a full-time staff for a full year and the salary was $81K. I'll say it, I told Bob earlier today. I do see this something that we definitely need and it's something that we definitely need to move forward to. But looking at the beginning appropriation plus the 3 cents, I do see it as fairly low hanging fruit. If it is an item that is in contingency and we get through halfway through the year and we're doing fairly well on revenue and expenses, then maybe the direction is to move it out of contingency and then approve it. But we still are talking about a bunch of money to taxpayers, and that's a hard one. That's just kind of what
Yeah,
it is.
because I know Brian definitely needs a dispatcher, we all know that, so you don't want to take that away. That's why I was just trying to figure out how the two roles, they tied in together.
It is something that we definitely need expertise on, but I do see it as lower.
What page are you looking at, Amber?
This is A3.
Like your layout, Hobbs, it kind of shows the whole
No,
map of,
yeah.
I mean, it really does, it shows the whole
It
map of the
explains
county.
everything.
I mean, the whole damn thing.
This is, not the same as a lot of them.
Good, good.
We're not as fancy as a lot of county boards.
Um,
Well, these-
Amber,
Some of the meetings I've had lately, I'll put you up against me.
That doesn't say very much.
Broadcasting.
So what else is there that we can't take the 50,000 away from gas? What are possibilities? What can we look at to,
That's just the issue that,
there's nothing.
It's
unless
so,
we go back on the raises, that's discretion.
what is our portion of the 5% for everybody?
I don't know. I
Okay.
do know that we, did not get near as much from work as I expected. So, we have to go back and do some things in that. And then the question is, do you want to keep that money for the comp work folks and
Not do everybody else.
not so much for everybody else?
You know, what's the impact on the 1.6% increase in health insurance? Yeah, so I mean,
What, pass that on to the.
That's.
or at least half of it. I'm used to passing something along, just to know they got skin in the game, just like the rest of the.
But remember what happened, was it last year, remember how the increase, and we had to have that emergency meeting?
What did we get? How much was the increase last year?
And we had to bring it.
Last year was flat, if I remember, the year before was 30%.
Yeah, the year we're remembering is the 30% year.
Yeah,
It was painful.
and there was only maybe a 2% COLA that year or something. Some well below 5.
No, 5 seems.
I don't remember seeing a 5.
5 is pretty aggressive.
You know, that's a good point. 5% is pretty rich.
Understood,
You
yeah.
know, maybe the idea about that, give it on that end.
Every year I have to do that.
I mean, if we're at 13,000, I think the school's number, I think was 32. If you got 13,000 bucks, it's 1.6 across the county. How many employees do we have right now? Maybe like 80.
Not all of those things.
Let's use 90. It's 144 apiece, divided by 2, let's say, and then 70 people.
It's still not really.
But you're not, I mean, you're really, talking about 65 bucks.
So if we pass it all, it's 13.
Yeah, absolutely. 65 bucks.
Well, so, you know, this is my second time doing this. It's 10 grand here and 10 grand there to add up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We gotta make sure, you know, you're looking at $54 million budget and I look at 10 grand.
Don't sound like much, does it?
Yeah.
You know, I had a year, when you might remember that when the state changed their retirement contributions. Instead of the state covering what they did, they took an extra 5% away. You know, we'll eventually get it, in theory. But the thing that bugged me then was they gave us a raise, theoretically to cover that. My take-home pay went down. More money in retirement. Even despite the increase, and probably I know I was not. Yes. I understood it. Didn't make it feel good. We're not talking about that in this instance. Not if we keep 5% cost of living. Even if we give them 100% of 1.2.
It's 5% of pay and 1.6% of the health insurance, so it's just not gonna
I mean, I didn't have very much time to look at this budget, but I do have a few. There's actually kind of a little bit of, I mean, I think that there's something that we probably need to correct before we advertise, which is there's a mechanical problem with capital budget. There's two things with capital budget. If you have, I will point out.
What page are you working on, Todd?
Huh?
What page are you working on?
7 of the appendix.
Capital budget 7, it's appendix 7?
Yeah,
What page is it?
capital budget details on appendix 7.
What page is it on? I'm looking for the-
7-1.
Looking for the capital, the spending plan, 5-year capital spending plan. I think that's on, oh yeah, okay, so it's on page H1. So I'm assuming you're proposing a separate capital budget, Jack? Will you, I didn't look at the advertisement, but you will have an operating budget and a capital budget?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, if you look at what the funding source, you show a total of FY22 of 954,200. You show grant funds of 517, pay-go of 45, and fund balance of 392,100. There is no, so pay-go means you have some kind of revenue, but there is no revenue in the capital projects fund. So what that really means is you're using fund balance to pay for both of them. But if you go and you look at your operating, this is good news. If you go and you look at your operating budget, you picked up the transfer into capital projects fund in your operating budget. You don't need it there because it's not part of the operating budget. You don't have any offsetting expenses. See, if you look on page E2, there's no Fund 30 in here. So you've got a transfer of 392,100 to the capital projects fund, which really should be 392,100 plus 4. You're using fund balance to do that, but so that number should be higher, but that's not part of your operating budget. It's part of your capital budget. So it actually comes out, makes the number smaller.
So how much comes out of the operating budget?
Yeah, it doesn't, you don't need to put that in there.
How much is that?
There is something I would like to talk about.
How much,
Three ninety-two?
how much is it?
392,
There you go.
392. What it comes out of is it comes out of your capital reserve inside your fund balance, but it's not part of your operating budget. So it comes out of there. And the proof is you have no Fund 30 expenses in, if you look at this, you're saying you're paying it out of the capital projects fund, but you don't have any expenses listed, so you don't need it there, which is good. I would like to say that in addition to the 1,475,000, which I need to talk about again in the context of what your available fund balance is, you also budgeted 2,571,889 in I guess additional CARES money, and 2,048,000 of that went into contingency. So I'm assuming that means you used 523,000 of grant money to pay for in the operating budget, which means that this operating budget is balanced on 1,998,000 of non-recurring revenue. So then if you go and you look at J1, which is your fund balance calculation. So it's true that if you have, so every year, I think we'll probably end up positive to budget this year. I pulled out the FY20 fund balance information. I haven't worked through all the numbers. But unassigned fund balance doesn't go up by the amount of your favorable budget variance. So for example, if you assume that you need $1.5 million in your fund balance to balance next year's budget, that has to come out of, it either has to come out of this year's favorable budget variance, or it has to come out of unassigned fund balance. So you're automatically 1.5 negative. So if you're saying that you've added $500,000 to the unassigned, that means you're plus 2 million. Okay? So I think that what I'm saying is I think the unassigned, my guess is that unassigned number is a lot closer to $1.5 million and not $2 million. That's just ballparking it. If you look at the budget stabilization, we saved a lot of money this year from the refinancing, but the way Davenport had that worked is that was all supposed to be plowed back into the debt stabilization reserve in future years. So there's no positive, that doesn't drop down into unassigned. Got fine what I'm saying? On
That's
your
gonna cover
capital,
debt service.
on your,
in
yeah, on
the
your
out
capital,
years.
you also have, in past years, you've asked to squirrel away $100,000 for the reassessment every year. So that would also have to come out of, it's gotta come out of one of two places. It's gotta come out of existing unassigned or favorable budget areas. They're the only two places it's coming from. On your capital projects right now, you've got a $3,050,000 at the end of the FY20. So Davenport last year recommended that we keep a minimum of $2.5 million in our capital projects fund. So the 2 million, we put 2.5 million in there, and then I put some extra in there for because there's a lot of contingencies related to that radio system, which we don't have figured out. So you gotta have money set aside to pay for that somehow. It's gotta come out of fund balance. This year already, I think that we have spent around $700,000 out of that capital projects balance. And then you've got like another 400,000 coming out of that. So the capital projects balance is down to like 2 million, which is kind of under where they wanted it to be. And the way I've always handled that in the past is, the way I get back up is I borrow from unassigned. But I went back and looked at, because we've had a lot of favorable, you look at the financials and you can say, we put like a 1.2 million back in fund balance. That's true, we have it a lot of years, but that doesn't mean that goes into unassigned. It goes into other buckets, because we fund reserves with those savings.
You mean it needs to be moved into other buckets? I mean, it could go
Yeah,
into.
no, it could be, but then you're depleting your other buckets. That's the point is that you want to keep those buckets filled to some extent. I mean, that's what Davenport said, goal is 2.5, you should try to keep that. In lieu of taking some kind of replacement reserve, they said, try to keep that's what they told me last year, try to keep $2.5 million in that capital reserve. So we won't have that money. And on top of that, you've got kind of some unknowns related to that radio system. But I just looked at this. So I looked back to FY16, and between FY16 and FY17, fund balance went up. Then in FY18, it went down by over $2 million. Then in FY19, it went up by about $800,000. And then in FY20, between FY19 and FY20, it actually went down $900,000. So what's happening with your unassigned fund balance, it's not just a function of how you're doing on your budget, it's a function of where you're squirreling your money away. And what are you spending every year on capital projects? Because so I think the books, I went back briefly, we spent about $500,000 from the fund balance already in capital projects this year. I mean, that was in the budget. And then you just appropriated another 200 plus from fund balance for the school buses. So you've used at least 700,000 out of your capital projects reserve right now. So I'm just pointing out I'm just saying that I think that it's probably realistic that number is, I don't think you have a 2.4 margin. I think that's pretty aggressive. I think you still have a margin, but I think it's probably the case that your margin is less than what your budget used to that. I think you used about $2 million in non-recurring this year to balance your budget, and I don't think that you have that margin in your unassigned.
So what is the number, what's the number, Carly, what do we need to put? What's the number that she's saying that we need to change it to?
Well, it depends on how much of that you wanna move to these other buckets, right?
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
if I'm out in the field and my water bottle is full and I'm thirsty, I'm gonna drink it down until I get back to the creek to fill it back up. So I don't know that I feel compelled to keep every one of those buckets full to the brim all the time.
But keep in mind that at a minimum, what you use in fund balance next year
Yeah.
becomes reserved.
What's
So
the balance?
where are you gonna get that money? You're either gonna get it from existing unassigned, or you're gonna get it from positive budget savings this year.
Right, so how many of these buckets do we have that do we have a target amount that we'd like to keep? You got a capital one?
Yeah, I think you're fine on your, I don't think you're below the 18%, but I don't think you have,
Overall.
I seriously don't think it's $2.4 million. I think it's probably much less than that. That's just my guess.
But you're not suggesting that the $2.4 million is not available to us as a whole, it's just in the unassigned fund balance?
I don't think that
Right.
at the end of FY21, so this is actually projecting, this budget is comparing, I think that in the past, we always compared this to ending, and this is comparing to opening. Is that right? 7121. But anyway, I think what I'm trying to tell you is I don't think you're going to have 10,554,000 in unassigned fund balance at the end of this year. In which case, that number gets smaller. Do you understand what I mean? But that's all I'm saying. I mean, I think
So
I think it's
idea.
aggressive to think that you're going to be there.
Okay.
There is one other thing. The thing about
numbers
the
float around.
Hang on a second.
The numbers
the
float,
other
there's
thing-
no correct estimate for that, so I did the best I could. The whole thing here is there's money in the bank to cover some amount of deficit spending.
Mhm.
But that can't keep going on year after year. That's the long and short of this.
But I think that number will be significantly lower. And then what you'll end up with next year is you'll have a bigger budget with smaller numbers. So it doesn't take long when you start using 7 figures to balance your budget to eat away at that margin, is what I'm telling you. And 7 figures vis-a-vis what Penny raises is a lot of money. There's one other thing I wanted to say, which is that you currently have 3 capital projects that are ongoing. My guess is that all of them will be, none of them will be complete by the end of this year. Well, I mean, even if they're complete, I think there will be expenditures flowing into FY22, like maybe, I don't exactly know what, but you won't be paid off on the public radio system won't be paid, the admin building won't be done. I don't know about the schools, but my guess is that even if the project is done, like from a money point of view, it's not going to be done. And in that case, you need to spend that money in FY22, and the way you're going to spend it, the way you're going to pay for it, hopefully, you're either going to pay for it from fund balance if it goes over, or you're going to use the debt proceeds that we already have. But that money has to be reappropriated next year. You can't carry forward a capital budget appropriation. So the question is, you could do it as like how we carry forward contracts, like as an encumbrance. But if that number gets to be more than 1%, you're going to have to advertise. So the other alternative is to try to build some kind of carry forward balance into the capital budget so that you don't end up having a place where when you need to pay your FY22 pieces of those bills, that you had a 1% budget issue.
So
And
we don't do
I've been
advertising.
backwards and forwards with, we had this issue last year. I've been backwards and forwards with this with David Twolian. And, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I'm pretty sure I'm right. You can't carry forward capital budget appropriations from year to year. So if you aren't done with all those projects by the end of this year, you have to reappropriate. Now, if it's under 1%, that's fine. We can just do it just like a regular encumbrance. But if it's over 1% of your budget, you're going to be in a place where you have to advertise before you can pay your bills on that project in the first quarter of FY22. So my recommendation would be to build some kind of number in there for whatever you think the ending pieces of all those projects are going to be into your FY22 capital budget. It has no impact on, it's just
At the end of the day.
it's a mechanical thing. Yeah, the capital budget stuff is mechanical. It's just the way stuff works. Understand what I mean?
We love public hearings.
Huh?
Yeah, we're good at it. We're good at it.
Well, you like them, but I don't. And I especially don't like advertising. So anyway, but that's all I don't have any. I do have, interestingly, I have a very detailed, I'm sorry I'm so late, but I have a very detailed IT budget, which is actually a little bit under what's in Jack's numbers. So if you want some more money, we can put that in there if you want. It may not be after the raise. I have to look at that, but I think it is. And it's up to you whether or not. There are some things that I've talked to Noah about that I think we need to change in the EMS budget. And it's up to you whether or not you want me to look at, you just want to move forward with this and do that as a supplemental next year or whatever. But there's definitely, the repair, the two big things are that I know about in his budget are the vehicle maintenance is just, we need a lot more money. I don't know what the number is now, but based on what the FY21 budget is, we need a lot more money in that line, even more than what we asked for in January. We need more money in telecommunications because there's things related to.
Why do we need so much more money on vehicle maintenance? We just bought a bunch of brand new vehicles.
Because you assumed all the maintenance on all those old vehicles that were in bad shape from the rest of
When
the
you say the IT budget, I'm going down and I'm actually comparing it to the original budget request. When you say the IT budget, are you referring to the 12.5.10 data
Yeah,
processing?
I have worked out, I have the precise
your
numbers contractually that are due on a lot of things.
All right.
I would encourage you to put that in that budget.
What's your number?
Well, I don't have it with me,
Okay.
but it's within $20,000 of what's in the budget.
No, all right. Okay. There you go. It's 30K.
Yeah.
Making correction. Like.
It's lower.
No, listen, I'll like.
Can I say two things about IT though? There's really three unknown things right now, IT. I am extremely concerned about, we can talk about this later, about the amount of time, things that are being tasked to IT that weren't in the original job description. And the biggest one being this the constant audio-visual stuff. Meetings plus all the editing, getting it all the way, it's taking a lot of time. And I've asked Bruce to actually start tracking that time so we know exactly how much it is. I'm wondering if there's some possibility that either on the meeting side or on the editing side, we might be able to outsource some of that, just to free up some of his time. Bruce seems to think that, I don't have any numbers, it was just an idea. ANS is still talking to us about cybersecurity, where they think that we need some additional, to the tune of $30,000 a year. And Bruce's recommendation is let's spend $5,000 this year and study it in more detail. That's not in there. And the other thing that we don't have, the only big piece that we still don't have resolved related to the whole ERP implementation is that eventually when we totally go off of RDA, we are going to have some kind of ability to access our legacy records for some period of time. And we do not have a solution in place for that right now. And now, Stephanie, we were just talking about this today in our Avenity meeting. If we sign the 2-year contract that RDA has proposed to us, we will have until the end of calendar year 2022 before we have to address this issue. So the way I'm looking at it now is I think it's going to be an FY23 issue. But we just don't have a solution. We don't know how to do it, and because we don't even have a solution in place, we have no idea how much it's going to cost.
Hey, Steph, so when we do the conversion, I guess you are gonna decide for the treasurer's office how far back you wanna go to bring the data in, right?
Right. And well, I think what was actually in the contract, we're gonna actually convert unpaids and then go forward. Anything that's delinquent or unpaid, it was cheaper. And then that way we just need to have some type of a way to go back to the legacy system or have it dumped into a file or dumped into a database or whatever that we could go back to get the information.
Yes, the solution that CB Digital has proposed is it's not just Stephanie, it's all of us.
Well,
There's some kind of SQL server.
She said it.
The only problem is that none of us know how to use SQL. You know, then you're saying, you know, if we have a situation where we need to retrieve records, none of us know how to do it. But so we just, I think the answer is that it's just, we don't know. I'm not saying we can't. I'm not saying it's even going to be really expensive, but it's just the one big unknown right now. And it's not, I mean, and even we asked this to CB Digital today. It is not an emergency for us to figure that out right now. But it's just this TBD that we don't have right now.
Oh,
But you don't really need to know that until FY23.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's definitely a calendar year 2022 issue. It's not, because I mean, if we stick to the schedule, if we should have Tyler and Avenity, Tyler as the backbone functioning by the end of calendar 21, and Avenity also. So then we have to figure out how to get the pieces that aren't done back into Tyler. But so I think that issue about legacy systems is, once our time frees up a little bit, we can focus on that in FY22. I don't think we'll be able to do that, but I just want to tell you that it's, I've tried to be really careful to look at all-in costs on this ERP system from the very beginning, and that is the one thing I don't know. I mean, I can't price it because I don't have a solution. We don't know yet. And that's they're my only comments on IT. I also, if you want me to, and I don't know what hours assumptions were used in EMS. I can go back and look at that. That's all. I don't have anything else.
Anybody got any comments on MJ's? All right. I got just some general ones for you, Hobbs. I think the way Hobbs has laid this out, and I hate to kind of cop out on this, is he's given us a whole bunch of information today. The idea is to come back on March 23rd next week, and then discuss this again with potential changes. Is that correct?
If possible, if we do something.
No, but hopefully, we'll see how Green County treats us. Hopefully next Tuesday we can come back and we can talk about this again. I'm just picking at a couple of them here. We've really gone up $100,500 in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in the last year. Essentially we've hired the additional staff person. We put, I'm sure, a bunch of technology stuff in there. Is that,
This is last year, it's another 5%. So
yeah.
Because
Gosh.
we can do the math. if you want.
No, that one's I'm good on. What about on the Madison Rescue Squad? there is an extra 15K there, also. What is that?
The deal was that we were gonna start giving them money. We were gonna do the billing. We're gonna give them the money for the calls they run.
Okay.
So there's a $15,000 offset on revenue.
Okay.
Ms. Murray estimated for that, so.
All right, that's okay.
Account for it.
So, all right, no, that answers the question. The next one is no shocker. It should be a tremendous shocker. We're up $433,500 just in EMS. That is, and I don't think there's anything we can do there, and I know we've all discussed it and approved all of it. That is a whopping sum. The invoice.
You've already covered 3 cents.
Oh, absolutely, no question. What?
Items that you just hit, you covered the 3 pennies.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah,
And then maybe some change.
absolutely, yes, sir.
All the CARES money.
Oh, absolutely. But we are, and Hobbs and Noah are doing the real work on it, and put more on Noah, frankly. Basically stood up a whole department. I mean, and not in a small way, in a fairly major way. The schools going up $1.5 million, I assume that's all pass-through money basically, because our side of it is actually down a little bit.
Yes.
The other one on this contingency fund, we're budgeting for it, it appears differently, Hobbs. Is that the way to look at this? Because you've got on the back of E2, in contingency, the item is, we went from a FY21 budget of 300,852, and we're putting 2,280 or 2,583,336 in it.
Isn't that the American Rescue Plan Act stuff?
All right, I'm on page
That's
82,
this-
where are you at?
E2 down on contingency funds, 91,100. And these are all super low hanging questions too, so please,
Well,
I appreciate it.
go over to the detail on. Page 5, -20.
Okay.
Yeah, one in front of the book is supposed to be a summary, it's a roll-up.
On 520,
5-20 is the line item.
So, yeah, big chunk of this.
oh, thank you, Barry, that is what I've been looking for.
Right,
Just haven't got there yet.
Yeah, so the American Rescue Plan Act, we're slated to get 2,583,336.
That sounds right.
Does that sound about right? So,
My proposal is to take 22,000 of that and pay for this broadband, whatever it is.
right,
And earmark another $500,000 for the EMS station.
Yeah.
Which was, and if you earmark it, you can't be content.
so now that money does not have to be spent, well, I guess I don't even know whether the ink's completely dry yet, but that money doesn't have to be spent until December of 2022. Is that correct? 2024. Right, well, then
Could we put more of that money toward the EMS station?
or broadband.
I guess
EMS
it's a
station.
question of velocity. My thought is, I mean, the county moving at the pace it does, we might have to do some studies and get workshops or whatever. This assumes that we can get through this decision about whether we're going to be here on Gate Road or somewhere else by the end of next year, as well, at which point it will lapse and go into a future year's budget. That's more or less a placeholder.
Yeah, so,
But the point is that if, the way I read it right now, we can pay for EMS stations with this grant money. So we could, I guess theoretically, if we could move fast enough, take all that money and apply it to the EMS station.
When is the money supposed
Your
to come
Honor.
in?
Can I make a bid?
No, no. You only have
Half of it
Okay,
soon,
you
half of
only
it a
have
year
a
later.
task
That's
force.
right.
Half of it soon and half of it a year later. So
Okay, well, I was.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I haven't
I didn't
gotten.
have, I understood.
So I woke up this morning with this idea. I talked to you before, the keeping the task force or going with an authority. And I woke and had this idea that perhaps we could use 200,000 of this over the next 2 years to hire a professional that would go out and answer all these questions that I'm collecting, that we're all collecting, not just me, that we're all collecting. And at the end of the day, over the course, would probably take 2 years to come up with all the stuff that Sean was talking about last night. And come back to us, answer all those questions and say, and I think you should go with an authority because of this reason. But, we'd have a professional boot on the ground for 2 years, working on this and reporting. We'd keep the task force in place.
Not to dive in too deep on the task force broadband or authority view, because we got enough of that last night. Mike Fisher's comment last night was that we need to get going on it. I agree with that. What's it gonna actually cost us to, we're talking budgeting, so you're talking round numbers. And I would think that you would do it from contingency with the board's approval to move the money into that direction when RFPs are put out or whatever you want to do to get this person. So there is some control of flow of money. Is 2 years the realistic expectation on how long it's going to take to implement get internet?
To get a good understanding of it all.
What about the other counties who are ahead of us right now?
Yeah,
We can't use,
Everybody keeps talking about this, and we had a meeting, we had a,
because I was gonna
we
say
had a-
Orange County.
Orange County does not seem to be as far ahead as what it appears. They caught an opportunity with a ditch that was open, and they had the opportunity to put in a lot more, and good for them, fiber in that hole. And then they expanded that substantially. And now they are starting to offer a internet service.
Their authority is an ISP. They are doing it, yeah.
But like everybody wants to talk about Rappahannock, it doesn't sound like they've done anything really. Louisa's work.
Louisa, yeah.
No. What?
What about Louisa?
Louisa's doing some stuff, but it doesn't sound like they're light years ahead. Are they?
I think they've got some partners together.
Yeah, well, then good for them. Good for them. No
Big
doubt.
chunk of money.
That's,
But you're right. It's happening.
according to Voorhees, it sounded like they have put several $1 million in the ground. Yeah, exactly, more than that.
Well, the orange thing is just a different concept.
Yeah, no, but I guess my question is, if we are spending money to hire someone to do what you're saying, Cardi, there's people somewhat ahead of us, even if it's 2 steps. Do we have to spend money to hire someone for specifically for Madison?
It looks like we can partner up with other people, but it does look like that this is almost a case-by-case deal, since rural internet is so scarce. And look at use Orange and Louisa. They tap into a whole different kind of growth pool. We're more in the mountains.
Yeah.
This is what it was.
So we need to get that person.
And
This fits with what I've been saying, it's like if, $2 million drops out of the sky on us, what will we spend it on? We don't have a plan to install,
and that's,
computers or wires or anything.
That's been the
So we just
assertion.
need a plan.
the assertion by, not our members, not the board members on the broadband task force, but the money that has been granted, through grants to these authorities, it's been on specific projects, like, this is what X is going, we're gonna do this. And at this point, how do you apply with just an idea? I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'd like to have a professional come up, end up with a plan.
About 100,
Huh?
about 100.
Per year?
That's short of you.
All right, see, you think we can hire somebody for 100K? Yeah.
Yeah, if they're willing, if it's the kind of people we keep hoping will drop out of the woodwork. Don't need the job,
Yeah,
one of
of
the
course,
projects.
no,
Well, now, this a couple issues there. One is that, we need to make sure that this qualifies, that when they say broadband infrastructure, make sure that includes planning and staff time and all that kind of stuff, so it's a good concept. But, to go back to what MJ said, it's just bad budget practice to use one-time money for recurring costs. So if we have a new employee or a contractor, it needs to be for a defined term, not.
Absolutely, that's why I think this fits perfectly.
Okay.
If
you're talking about not doing an employee, you
Right.
are focused towards like.
The contractor, yeah,
Yes,
right. That's a
absolutely.
better way.
Just identify what we have, who would want to hook up to the internet at all. Pete had a point last night, that our aging population in Madison County, there's plenty of people up in Edlin that are, 80 years old that they don't care. They can't even spell a computer, they don't care. If, all the data, demographics, the plan.
If they could gather the information within a year, and the second year be more an implementation side of it, then I think it would be good, and it'd be money well spent.
I think if they can't cobble together the grants to perpetuate something with a year's investment, should be a little bit worried
That's,
with the kind of money that I think is out there. Already have been committed in some cases to, I don't know, there's 4 or 5 obvious partners that have money to spend in Madison, but they've got we can't give them the direction in a responsible way without someone who focused on this, I think, the plan.
So-
The contractor.
so what about instead of doing 200 over 2 years, we put 100 in over the first year?
Yeah.
And retain the task force side. Let this potential contractor work with the task force and for the task force. Would that be reasonable?
Yeah, with the regular report back to the board and any commitment that we see pop up, then we come back.
Yeah, and I made the comment before the meeting, the assertion last night was that we have to have a task force because contracts can be, or we have to have an authority, excuse me, because an authority can sign contracts with people. That's true. In the same regard, a task force can recommend to the county administrator and the board of supervisors, and they can sign the exact same contracts. So I still am not convinced that the authority is actually the appropriate. It is positive to hear good discussion about it, and I'm sure you all have been doing this successfully. But we could put some money toward it and make some progress.
Yeah, well, someone that I think very highly of their opinion told me one day that an authority, that we're gonna end up setting up an authority sooner or later. I thought, okay, so now But I'm inclined to say, I want to, I'm speaking, I say I all the time because I want this task force to be able to show the rest of you all and the citizens of this county that this is the way to go. And I think that we can hire a contractor and do the legwork and come up with a plan. And to me, to partner with somebody, tell me exactly how does that work? What are the ins and outs of the partnership and how does that work? I can't tell. I don't think I can tell you right now exactly how that works. I don't know exactly how it works.
Yeah, that's kind of the, but that is, what you're proposing is kind of the Madison way, which we're seeing in another deal, the opposite direction, is let's do the homework and then make a decision based on the homework that is done correctly, instead of making a decision and then doing the homework late, which seems reckless.
So
100K,
I tell you, so Kevin, we're gonna meet tomorrow down there, I think. So I think what's still due, all of us, is what are the goals for this consultant that we would be hiring? Exactly what will show them, what they're gonna get for $100,000.
what is an example of a contractor that you have found in your research now? Like, is there a company or?
That could do something
Yeah,
like
That's
this?
what you're proposing. Have y'all run across one of these individuals or?
No, I don't think we've really looked yet. We were,
Hey, that's a, I'll take it on his answer, that's fine.
We have to put together some work, thank you. What we expect out of this person, I guess advertise for.
yeah.
Put the plan together.
Or group of people is probably.
Well, I think most of these people want to stay together. They want to be part of the authority, but.
Oh, no, I was talking about, like we're using, like, I don't want to get into.
Oh, I know what you mean.
But like we're using Think IT, and you got like one point person, and then you got like a whole team that works behind the scenes that does all kind of stuff. Cherry Becker, I guess.
But I think this.
I don't know, it seems like probably a pretty good investment.
Well, I mean, it is number 2 right here.
We all done, if you want to try for a year, put 100K towards it, from the Americans Recovery or whatever it is.
Rescue.
Thank you.
What do you think, Mr. Hobbs?
No, this would get us off the dime, and it's, my observation is that you bump along and you do what you can with existing staff and volunteers, and this broadband thing is just, it's beyond what we can absorb staff-wise or volunteer-wise.
We have Bruce. What else do we need?
I'll drive the fiber truck.
Yeah, there you
Money and moral support.
The problem is Bruce is not fixing the telephones when they get down.
You got some more?
No, so. We have people in the county who I think could have the skills to collectively to do it. They have jobs to do.
Absolutely.
And.
Absolutely. All right, you made a good case.
I didn't have been to the workshop last night, I just got some discussion.
Little, I don't know, I didn't get as much out of it as I thought I was gonna get, but got some more questions presented.
There were some new things brought up, I guess.
Yeah, we had probably, I guess, 4 out of the panel were thumbs down on forming an authority right now. Overall,
This was the planning commission.
yeah.
I didn't count, but if this is a direction that we can deal with it responsibly, and it will start the ball rolling, and enable the task force to kind of take the reins, you know, a little bit heavier than it probably is the right thing to do. And a lot of these things like this, these meetings being televised, and hopefully with the new technology we're getting in our thing, all this stuff is going to continue in a lot of ways. I mean, it's just what it is. You know, and, you know, 100K, there you go. All right. Hobbs, where else you want to go here? Because I mean, we can kind of sit here and nitpick at it, but it doesn't seem like it's wrong.
We're gonna go back and look up a list of what you said, and maybe that will frame discussion on Tuesday, but
That's right.
except for some of this business about this fund balance issue and capital funding that we show in the budget. Sounds like we're on track to advertise what's here more or less. But at some point the red pencil's going to come out.
Yeah, which was it? Second. Everybody just needs to take this thing home and really start going through it. Figure out where you can start crossing stuff off.
Jack, this is really good.
Yeah, I'm on.
This is really good.
Anything else specifically we want to knock off while we're here?
Well, I guess I'd like to, what you were talking about, MJ, the buckets and our projection where we'd like to keep them filled. I like to see a schedule of those and see where we are.
Yeah, so I think my concern is that we have been, we haven't been putting money. I think the original, and this may have been from the original projections that we had from the original financial policies where they suggested we start swirling away, you know, this reserve. And we haven't been doing that. What I've just been doing is juggling, you know, fund balance around, general fund balance around. Last year, I did put, I had this conversation with Davenport and they said, you know, as a general, just for you, we think you should have $2.5 million at the end of every year. And that's before, one of the things is that where we were short last year is there's still a lot of unknowns related to that radio project. Where, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that in contingency that, you know, we're not going to know about. I don't know where Brian stands on that now, but the last time I saw it, we didn't have enough money in fund balance to reserve what he thought his total contingency should be.
Well,
So
I think Jack has talked to Brian, got that covered, whatever.
But I mean, that our capital budget every year has been paid for by that capital reserve. So if you don't put any money back in that in a couple of years, you're not gonna have any money to pay for capital things either. So the point is you put it in and then you take it out. You do have to, I'm gonna emphasize this again, you have to reserve for your use of fund balance. So you only have two places where you can get that from. Either your positive budget savings for the year, which goes into fund balance, or existing unassigned. So you have $1 million built into, if you take where you were at the end of FY20 on unassigned, you have a built-in negative approximately 1.5 million. So even if you come in 1.5 million positive to budget, and that's after the budget assumed that you were going to use $600,000. It's unclear to me how, you know, you're going to come out. I just don't know. I mean, I would want to look at it. Plus, I think you wanted to put $100,000 away every year on that reassessment reserve. So you need money to do that.
How many more? What, reassessment? 2
Yeah.
years ago?
The other thing you have to keep in mind is we spent, I looked at it briefly, I have to go back and look at it, but I think we'll probably spend so far, you've appropriated most of your capital budget so far this year, and we've spent about 700, and plus those buses, which came out of fund balance. You spent about $700,000 out of your capital reserve already this year. Now, and you say next year you're gonna spend another 4, basically, that's what the numbers are. So that, 3 million is probably down to 2 million now. Do you wanna leave it at that? I don't know, I mean, I'd have to look at it some more. The one thing that you could look at is that almost the entire savings from the refinancing Davenport assumed would be put back into, which happened this year. So it's not in the fund balance numbers from last year, would be put back into the debt stabilization reserve to defray future costs on debt service. But it's possible, I think they were looking for this like 1 penny scenario, over time, that you could take some of that money out of that stabilization reserve and build in higher tax rates, because that's like basically your only choice. I mean, so you have to look at it. All I want to say is that the budget now take out the $300,000 or $400,000 that you got transferred that you don't need in the operating budget. But even with that, the budget assumes, are there any specific costs? Is the $500,000 for I can't remember what it's called, the CARES money or whatever it is, next year, is that just to pay for operations, or are there specific costs in the budget related to that? It's just.
In the capital budget as a EMS station.
No, but I mean, you've got 2 million in contingency and 2.5 million in revenue. So the 500,000 is just paying for operations.
Paying for study and whatever we need on the EMS station.
Okay, I don't know where that is, but let's just assume you use $1 million in fund balance this year. That's your budget. You're getting really close to your 18% threshold. That's all I'm saying. I mean, you probably have 1 more year that you can do that, and then you're out. Then you're done, and then you have no money. And if you don't put money back in to capital reserve, then you have no money for capital projects or anything like that. So
Well, we would be
probably
selling-
one of the places I would look is that is looking to revise that debt stabilization reserve so that in future years you can build in higher tax rates. Because you could do that, you could front load that, because that's a lot of money in that.
So what I'm hearing is, probably work toward advertising this budget, but come and start working on a list of potential areas to adjust. We need to get this ad thing straightened out so we can go through there. Ask MJ to put her thoughts together on this thing, and we're gonna have a meeting on Monday at 3:00 to get the ad straight. So we'll go through that, and then be ready to go on Tuesday.
That work for everybody?
Yeah,
Be ready to go
thank you.
for the meeting on Tuesday?
Yeah. And be able to.
So you're not gonna have any more changes then?
Yes, Tuesday we're gonna come with changes, but chances are,
But how are you gonna have the ad done if you're gonna change it?
chances are we're gonna advertise where we're at and then verbally. We need to advertise, we've gotta make this time,
So
this
you need-
timeline.
Okay,
Yeah.
the 300,000 I'm talking about, you gotta fix that. Because it's
Agreed.
like, it's a mechanical issue inside the budget, you gotta fix it.
Kevin, we still go to 3:00 on Monday. I asked Kevin to sit down.
The 300K,
That's
Yes,
the
sir.
typical of getting ads. That's
100%,
where we're at.
that's, I agree with you.
I can change it.
Anybody else got anything here?
Is that Monday meeting gonna be streamed?
No, Monday is, Hobbs, MJ, and, Kevin. But Monday at 3, to figure out the ad. You, Hobbs, and Kevin. We're gonna make sure that the ad is somewhat, pretty close to right on Monday at 3.
Well, what's your feeling about putting in carry forward balances on all those projects? Because that would be my, I mean,
Monday at 3.
huh?
Monday at 3, be ready.
Okay.
Very good. All right.
Okay.
Anything else on this that anybody wants to say? By all means. All right. We have any information and correspondence? All right, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Let's talk about this real quick. We did have a presentation the other day from, or it was a public comment presentation. They have definitely called me several times, and text message. Apparently Ms. Hoffman has been getting them as well, and Amber, everybody. You gotta give them a ton of credit. And what they were talking about, I think everybody's in agreement, is atrocious. Do we want to do anything with their resolution on organ harvesting in China?
I don't. So I asked them, I know we all think this way, and that's horrible. And certainly we would, I hope the people of Madison County aren't looking to the board of supervisors for advice on where to get our funds.
Or maybe you.
It's something,
No.
somebody should take us, it seems like something that someone at some level of the United States government should care about,
Yeah.
the State Department.
Yeah.
And that's who should be putting something together to voice our collective, call at this. I don't understand the preoccupation, Trish's trying to cover every.
Yeah.
They should go.
Right, but gosh, I asked her, I said, isn't this something you should be pursuing at least the state level, but certainly sound like the State Department, the US government or something. I just don't understand.
Yo,
To me, it's just not a county, function to do this type of, especially since we really don't know that much about it anyway.
And I hear it's legit.
And it probably
The
is.
company is here in the United States.
No, we're in China.
The company's in China.
We're in China. They're like, take these people and take their organ. Like if you need a kidney.
all right. Well, I agree with Ms. Hoffman, but I do agree with Ms. Hoffman. I agree with what Kevin said. I was thinking it was more Madison County Treasurer's business.
It's terrible.
It is horrible. We passed a lot of resolutions and recently we've been passing a lot of good ones. In the past, I can think of lots of ones that meant not a whole lot. Is it something we could pass something and just be done with?
You know,
I mean, I agree with you. If people are looking for Madison Board of Supervisors' opinion on this, we are all in much bigger trouble, much bigger. Pass a resolution will get them stop calling me and be done with this, and I'm pretty happy.
it'll free up the chairman's time.
No, well, it hadn't been sucking in a whole lot of it, so.
And I've got the email.
For some reason, I've avoided being like this. John Gray tells me he's getting calls.
Really?
Jackman's screening stuff from my
Oh, wow.
so
Passing
I just don't know if it's a truly legitimate, I mean, I don't think we know enough about this to,
what about if
and
we
they're
pass it?
very pushy.
If we, they are,
Yeah,
like,
very-
they're polite about it.
They're polite, they're nice.
What about if we had a resolution that said, we do not support organ harvesting in China? Real simple. With no digging in detail. I think everybody in Madison County can pretty much agree. I think unanimously, we can agree, we don't support that. What? That's who they were talking about, so that's who I'm going with.
You could,
Miss
you
Murray.
could drop
Russians are all
drop the in
out.
China part.
Yeah, there you go. So we could say, as a resolution, we could say, Madison County government is against organ harvesting.
Illegal.
Illegal. Well, I don't know if they're legal.
I don't know.
I guess it's the hard on the driver's
There is
license.
a legal way to do it, but not.
It's the hard on the driver's license. And more power to them if they can get something good out of it. Do we want to make something generic? Be done with this.
So Jack, does this, I mean, if they can go get a whole bunch of counties and put them in a big pile and then take them to the state, is that what they're trying to do, you think?
That's
What?
a
Other
usual
counties are-
tactic. It's like, oh yeah, we got all these counties that agree with us.
Okay, so it's like a second amendment thing and all that.
You know, but I'm not sure. And by doing it, they're raising awareness
Yeah,
with their cause.
yeah, I agree. Okay, I'm in.
Gracie? Yeah, there you go. What other counties are doing this?
Definitely Shenandoah.
They already did it.
Yeah, they already did.
Yeah.
And then my guess would be like the Northern Virginia counties. I mean, that's where she's from.
This is
She
from
drove down
Falls
from Fairfax
She
or
said
something.
Latin, didn't she?
Prince William.
Yeah.
So that, is that all they've got in the state of Virginia so far?
No, they want to.
There was like,
Yeah, they-
there was like three or four.
They want the
like three or
resolution
four.
to say that the county
But
denounces
apparently there was a man in Northern Virginia who was attempting to
harvesting.
retrieve his needed part that way.
What?
I thought it was back.
Apparently there was a man in Northern Virginia who was trying to get some sort of, part that he needed, a body part, an organ that he needed, and he was going that route, or was looking into that route.
Well,
Yes.
that's not,
So
I mean,
it's
I don't, you know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Well, in our country, you have a list, you have to be on a list, so
Right,
it's
here anyway, it's.
Right.
This is what she's saying.
Yeah,
It's that the resolutions were to denounce.
No, they approved their resolution, they approved the latest resolution.
The latest resolution is
Yeah, the
to
lady-
denounce.
Yes, the lady is obviously against it.
Oh,
To
I was
denounce.
backwards.
Everybody.
I thought she
What do you want to do? All right.
Amber thinks she's running the business.
Yeah, I thought she wanted the organ.
No, it's
No.
different. It's much different than that. It is different than that.
Alright.
Well, I mean,
know, I was
it's-
scared.
Who are these people?
I was thinking about
Sarah, she went in that business.
All right. This has been good.
It's fun.
Yeah,
I thought you understood.
all right.
Yeah.
So now we've got it cleared up, Amber. Do we want to pass on, be done with this? Let's put it on the agenda. Let's pass something legal on.
Alright.
Good Lord. And I completely agree with Ms. Walking. And I agree with Kevin's point 100%. If they're looking for Madison County as some type of guidance on this, then I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other information and correspondence? You got anything over there, Hobbs?
Sure.
All right. Public comment,
Yes, sir,
anything?
at least not here.
How many,
You got a
can you
comment?
tell how many people are watching the Vimeo?
4 total views,
That's terrible.
and that's not,
It's pretty terrible.
There was 2 last night, I was one of them. I don't know who the other ones were.
and there may be,
Yeah.
there may be more on YouTube, I don't have that up right now. That doesn't indicate who's watching on YouTube either.
All right, no public comment, no closed session. Anything else, folks? What do you want to do? Motion made, seconded, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you all. Be ready for Tuesday.